Well, right now, hearing the term gentrification is very loaded for me since I'm working on this project. I hear, just a completely complicated topic that, depending on who you are, it can be a very different thing. For me, it's something that I feel guilty about and I feel like I am part of, but I also can't help to a degree. To other people, it sounds like displacement. To other people, it's inevitability. To other people, it's race. So it is a multifaceted, very complex subject. I think there's a lot of factors with gentrification, one of which is socioeconomic. I moved to New York without a job, without an apartment, for my girlfriend's job. We came here together, and it put us in a situation to where our living situations were very limited as to where we could choose to live. We looked at maps, looked at where we could afford, and most of the neighborhoods that we could afford were traditionally minority neighborhoods. When we moved into the neighborhood, we didn't move into it looking for the neighborhood to change. However, just by us moving into the neighborhood, that changes the neighborhood. We were the first non-Black couple in our entire apartment complex, which probably has 50 units. And more than once after we moved in, I saw realtors pointing and talking about us, saying, "Look, they live here, it's okay." And it's something that I would rather not have happen. I liked the neighborhood how it was more before. It had a strong sense of culture. And now my neighborhood feels like it is becoming sterilized. It doesn't have the same sense of community as it did 4 years ago, and it doesn't have the same cohesion that I felt when I first moved there. So I think gentrification, racism, and white supremacy are definitely intertwined. It is not... Racism and white supremacy are not the only reasons for gentrification, but I think that they are inseparable. Historically, minorities haven't had the same opportunities, which has put them into a situation where they have less wealth and in the form of property owning, and it has made it so that the white population or richer population can control and leverage these minorities and their property values to make money off of them and extort them. White supremacy and white privilege, I don't think, are the same thing. I think white supremacy definitely has a even more negative connotation than white privilege does. That to me draws on violence and hatred, whereas white privilege is something that I definitely have, but white supremacy is not something that I identify with. I feel like those are very different terms, and one is loaded and one is not. White privilege is unfortunately something that I probably know very little about because it is just who I am and part of my life. And I don't know the privileges that I have versus some other people, because what is a privilege to me is just normal. And without the contrast, it's very hard to know where that line ends and how it has affected my life. I only know the history of the neighborhood over the past few decades and how it is traditionally a Caribbean neighborhood. And it's because of that, there's the strongest sense of culture and community, and everybody knows everybody. And most of the people I talk to have been in my building for 30 and 40 years. But before that, I don't know who the ethnic groups were that lived in the neighborhood. If gentrification was a criminal offense and it was a criminal, it would be like the mafia, because it would be a gang of criminals. It's not just one person or one thing doing it. It's a lot of people coming in from a lot of different angles, trying to just make their way in their own world. For some people, that is being a real estate agent and trying to make the most money off of property. For some people, it's just trying to find the next place that they can afford to live. For some people, it's cashing out and making money on their investment. For some people, it's about race. For some people, it is about just circumstance. So I don't think it's going to be just one guy committing the crime on his own. It's going to be a conspiracy of issues. In my current situation, I am in the lucky circumstance that I would be able to stay in my apartment for essentially forever. I am rent stabilized. I did not know that when I moved in, and it has been a miracle. I couldn't move into a non-stabilized apartment on my block at this point. They're going for $1,000 more a month than I'm paying for my one bedroom. And so I will stay in that apartment as long as I possibly can.